In the movie Jurassic Park, the character played by Joe Goldblum asks a really poignant question that I think is really pertinent to a lot of the things that we see changing in our society today. And that is, in our curiosity or desire to see if we could do something, did anyone ever wonder or ask or investigate as to whether we should be doing it? And that's really kind of the interesting question when it comes to social changes, like the masculinization of women. You can call it feminism if you want, but really what it's about is placing women in more masculine roles and seeing what happens. It's a big social experiment. Today, I want to talk a little bit about a research study that was recently completed that looked at the general overall happiness of women, specifically women who are in favor and more feminist versus those who are not, and how their lives differ. So I think it'll be really interesting, and I think that there's a lot of takeaways here. And this study, I think, is going to get a lot of attention. So let's talk about it. In 2024, the American Family Survey found a significant gap in the level of life satisfaction between urban liberal women and conservative rural women, or generally, basically, keep it simple, liberals versus conservatives. And the characteristics of their lifestyles and how they differed seem to contribute significantly to their dissatisfaction. So I'm going to talk about what the differences in their lifestyles were, and we can draw some conclusions, I think, based on just what we know about ourselves and human beings, and we can see where the differences are, and we can speculate to some degree as to why these things contribute to their lack of satisfaction. The first one is conservative women tend to get married at a much higher rate than liberal women. Now, I don't know why that is, but I find it very interesting. And in fact, it's not even close. This is a significant difference. I think it was like a 20-point difference between conservative women and liberal women. Marriage rates, especially with women, tend to express a very high level of life satisfaction. So when women remain single for an extended period of time, their life satisfaction generally tends to be lower. So I thought that was pretty interesting right off the bat. The next one is religious engagement. So about half of conservative women go to church on a weekly basis, and only a little over 10% of liberal women do. Being involved in a religious organization tends to extend a lot of benefits, including higher levels of life satisfaction, giving people a sense of confidence. And truly, like I've said in other videos, I think faith is the most powerful force in the universe. And when you can direct that faith to something positive in your life, like religion, it has an enormous benefit. Now, I'm not a particularly religious person myself, but I do have a lot of faith, and I do have a lot of spirituality, and I do take it very seriously in my life. I believe that all religions, are basically roads that take you to the same destination. But I do believe that religion, for many people, is not only a great place to express their faith, but it's also a great social environment where people get to meet each other, and there's all these, positive activities that people can get involved with, including charitable activities. So I think that religion is obviously a big one. Almost 30% of the liberal women complained of loneliness in their lives, and only about 10% of the conservative women were concerned about loneliness or had a problem with loneliness. I think that's really an important one too. It's just about having social engagement, talking to people. It may be that a lot of these people moved to the city, to get jobs, etc. So they left their homes, and that might be a big contributor to why they are experiencing so much loneliness. But loneliness is a problem not just for women, but for men, and it definitely plays a significant role in your overall life satisfaction if you feel like you don't have enough people to talk to or people to hang out with, or whatever. That idea in your head that you're lonely is destructive, because it makes you feel like you are not worthy. And that's a terrible, terrible feeling. In general, liberal women seem to have a much higher rate of mental illness. And I'm talking about the typical stuff like depression and anxiety. And they also seem to have a much lower level of agency, where they feel like they have control over their lives, which I find really interesting. That they put themselves in this environment and they've taken on this belief system, and they are feeling like they don't have control over their lives. I have a theory on this, and I'll tell you about it at the end, but I think this is absolutely to be predicted. This could have been predicted early on, the mental health and the lack of agency. I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things that I would have absolutely predicted 50 years ago. So now we're really getting into the meat of it here. And this is, I believe, probably some of the most significant factors. And it's so obvious. We should have all seen this coming. You're not going to believe it, but liberal women use social media more than conservative women. Now, the next few things are going to just follow right after that. You're going to know, okay, well, if they're using more social media, then that probably means they suffer from more mental illness. You're right, they do. They suffer from more mental illness. Who would have guessed? And they also have a lower sense of agency. They don't feel like they have control of their own lives. So they're suffering from depression and anxiety at higher rates. They experience loneliness at higher rates. They use social media at higher rates, and they're completely dissatisfied and unhappy with their lives. Who could have possibly seen that coming? Oh my God. And what's interesting is that it doesn't seem to be getting any better. Like, you think that after a generation of social media, we would have noticed that this is some toxic crap, you know? This Instagram and social media, in Facebook and TikTok, and this need to be seen as a sex object for women and judged as a sex object for women is something that has run its course. You know, you think we would have gotten to that point where we're all done, you know, I mean, with OnlyFans, I mean, they've taken away the bathing suits, you know what I mean? Like, why are girls still taking suggestive pictures and posting them on Instagram? I just don't get it. I do not get it. I mean, they're just making themselves vulnerable to criticism that most of them just can't handle. You know what I mean? They just can't handle it. Liberal women put a lot less emphasis on traditional family values, while conservative women seem to get a lot of stability and comfort from having traditional gender roles and family values. And we go back to the last one, where we talked about how the liberal women were feeling like they didn't have any agency or control in their lives, and as a result they're experiencing a lot of mental illness. You know, to me, it's like there's a nature to things. Do you know what I mean? Like the dogs, there's a nature to the dogs. If I take the dogs and I, you know, try to make them do things that aren't within their nature, they're going to be upset and, you know, they're going to be out of place. If I try to have expectations that they behave like cats, for example, and I try to put them on a roof and or make them climb a tree, they can't do that. They can't climb a tree. And they would become stressed. They would be very upset, you know, and they would become depressed, and they would feel a sense of loss of agency. You know, if I said, Shelby, you're going to have to climb that tree, or I'm going to, you know, I'm going to punish you, or you're not going to get fed for a while, you know, he would lose his mind. He would be very sad. He would never climb the tree, and he would have a strong sense of anxiety and depression about climbing that damn tree. And I think that's what's happened to liberal women, is we're asking them, you know, to do things outside of their natural comfort zone, to behave in ways that are not natural to them, to put them in a masculine setting with masculine roles and ask them to compete with men at jobs that many of them really never wanted to begin with. Many of them just wanted to be moms and wives, you know, and the idea of being out there in the workforce was not their first choice. Society has kind of forced them into it by making being a mom and a wife a bit of a cultural slur. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you're less than. You're not as good as that girl, that woman who goes to get her master's degree and becomes a lawyer or whatever. And that's a shame. It's a shame, because the contributions of each person are really based on what their inner calling is. And if you've got the inner calling to be, a lawyer, regardless of your gender, then you should fucking do it. There's no question about it. But if you've got the inner calling to be a mother or to be a wife, then you should feel proud and capable of doing it without expecting any pushback from society. What's really interesting about liberals, and I'm not a political guy, I'm not big into groupthink on any stuff. I don't like the conservatives, I don't like the Republicans, and I don't like the Democrats. The Republicans, one group is evil when the other group is incompetent. And I don't want to be around evil or incompetent people. Not only that, but evil becomes incompetent and incompetence becomes evil. It's just circular. It's just circular. So, yeah, I just think that our politics are broken completely. So I don't think that I'm being, political with this whatsoever. But I do find it very, very interesting on a values-based argument that women with more conservative values and those that follow a more traditional, natural path are happier or more content in their lives than women who I believe have been kind of pushed by the radical fringe into this more masculine direction because they felt like they needed to be competitive with men. They felt like they were being held down by men. And once you had equal rights and you could vote and you had the ability to get jobs and all that stuff, I think that the opportunity to choose what's in your own best interest is available to you. But if society is saying that being a mom and a wife is copping out, or you are a lower class or in some way not good enough because you've made that choice for yourself, then we're doing ourselves a great disservice as a culture. And I think we need to kind of take a look at that and see if we can turn it around, because there's a lot of opportunity in being a mom and a wife that we really need these days. We really need it. According to the Pew Research Center, 56% of liberal white women ages 18 to 29, 56%, that's more than half, that's a lot more than half, have been diagnosed with some kind of mental disorder. Just consider that for a moment. More than half of the white liberal women have been diagnosed with a mental disorder, like depression, anxiety, and just general mental disorders, just general senses of mental disease. This is unreal. This is unreal. Now, I know that there will be those who say, well, we just have better diagnosis. We just have more facilities available. No, we don't. Getting an appointment with a doctor, like a psychologist, who can actually diagnose you and prescribe you with something, that takes time. I don't know if you've ever tried to even get a therapist, just someone who's can't even give you a drug. They can just sit and listen to you. They're not even qualified to tell you what to do. These are just therapists. They just sit and listen quietly. And it's hard to get an appointment with one of them. When we were getting therapy for one of my daughters and we went through, marriage counseling, just getting that first appointment could take 6 to 8 weeks easily. So I can only imagine that getting in to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, God forbid, would take months and months and months. Then the demand is so high for mental health professionals that, if you've got a kid who's going into college, you tell them, go be a psychologist, because you will always be in need. Because our society is so effed up that there's going to be a constant stream of nut jobs coming your way. It's interesting. It's like what I was saying earlier about trying to teach the dogs to climb a tree. That's what we've done, is we've taken people out of the natural order of things and we've placed them in positions to try to achieve things that are not in their natural, toolkit. They can't do these things. It's not what comes naturally to them. Now, it's not true of all women. I'm not absolutely declaring that all women should be stay-at-home moms or we should do that kind of shit. Not at all. I'm just suggesting that we need to elevate the role of mom and housewife, that wife and mom. Being a stay-at-home mom is an honorable profession, and we should be promoting it to our children, telling girls that it's okay to go that path, that they're honored in society as contributors when you take that path, that you don't need to be a clock puncher or a white collar worker in order to be a valuable contributor to society. Because the way things are going right now, we have pushed all these women who are really good at school. The schools are really built for them, to be successful, and they are coming out of college at a much higher rate than men are, and as a result, they're getting better jobs than men, and they're making more money than men. And we know that whole hypergamous thing and the way it works. They only want to be with someone who's at their level or better, and there just aren't that many guys that are better, and yet most of the women are at that level. And we know that women really struggle in a natural way to respect men who make less money than them, or they're men that are the stay-at-home dad. They really, just from and it's okay for them to feel that way. It's okay for them to feel that way. But what's ironic is they can't see the irony in this situation. They absolutely created this problem. They've created the problem of their own mental illness because they put themselves in a position to do something that comes unnaturally to them because some radical feminist pushed them into it, and society told them that in order for them to be valued, they would have to act this way. And now they are acting this way, and the whole thing is coming apart. The wheels are coming off. There's more depression and anxiety and mental illness than at any other time. And meanwhile, our birth rates are falling off a cliff. And male depression and loneliness is skyrocketing. Male suicide rates are crazy, and male homelessness is crazy. Men don't have a purpose because they're not getting married, because they're not making families, because these women are all neurotic and crazy, and they're all looking at each other trying to outcompete one another to get the best guy, and there just aren't that many guys left, at least not that many guys that they want to be with. So we have created this perfect trap for ourselves. I don't know that anyone could have done it better. You know what I mean? It's just so ironic that we have created this mess just because a handful of lesbians in the 1970s, wanted to tear down society, and, anytime you get a group of people together talking about political parties and, political movements, it's always the loudest voices that get heard, and those loudest voices are usually the most extreme. And unfortunately, they set the agenda. And if they keep screaming loud enough, then that agenda keeps getting pushed in one direction or the other. And those of us in the middle who are just trying to live our lives, and we just don't want all this bullshit, I'm afraid that we're to get blame as well because we just don't get engaged. We just don't get in there and make our voices heard. You go to the ballot box, but someone needs to yell against the nut jobs. People on the same side need to hold people on their side accountable for their stupid behavior. So when someone on the right or the left is coming out with a stupid agenda, someone else on the right or the left needs to say, no, that's a stupid agenda. We don't want to do that. That's not working. All right, you guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. I know I'd try to draw some conclusions from this data. I'll put a link to it so you can check it out. Anyway, please let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe if you thought the video was good. And I'll see you next time. Until then, stay healthy, and if you can, be the better man.